The Strange Motion Way podcast, brought to you by
Royal Purple. Premium synthetic motor oils and high-performance chemicals have been designed to improve performance, provide long-term protection, and give you the confidence to push your vehicle to the limit. Royal Purple Premium Synthetic Motor Oils. Welcome to another episode of the Strange Motion Way podcast. I'm your host, Tim Strange. My wife, Carrie, is not sitting beside me tonight. She just got done with Texas LS Fest, so she's a little exhausted. So tonight we got another pair of people here. The shop had in the past a grade 8 Riddler finalist, America's Most Beautiful Custom Award winner, Good Guys Trendsetter Award winner. They select the Builder's Choice every year at the Fall Scottsdales. I got to know him, and in the magazines, he did a lot of work for Dick Magoo McGurgerak, if I'm saying that name right. I always butcher, but everybody, hot rodders, know Magoo. Grand National Roadster Show, Builder of the Year. I believe they have built 4 of the past when Street Rider magazine was around. They built the Road Tour cars. One of them has a very interesting story that we'll get to. Welcome tonight's guests, Dean and Daryl Livermore of Hot Rods by Dean in Phoenix, Arizona. That's a pretty good lead in there, right?
You did a nice job. Thank you. Hello, everybody.
And I'm sure I missed a few things. So, amazing shop there in Phoenix, Arizona. I've had the pleasure of coming by a few times. And like every other year you do an open house during the Good Guys show? Is that it, or you don't do them anymore?
Not as much as we used to, but we just had an open house this past year, so I'm going to get back into it a little bit. We'll play it by ear. We're so busy that it gets in the way.
Yeah, open houses are weird. I don't really do that anymore. I'm just far enough out of Nashville that a few people come in when they come to shows and might stop and holler at me, but I'm super hidden. And I had a couple open houses when I was in Illinois, and my shop was at the house, and there was always something missing, like a car club come in, somebody stole a body hammer, somebody stole a body dolly off my rack, and I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to do that. So, note to self: if you go to somebody's open house, be respectful. If you want to do something, just plug the crapper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Plug the crapper. Yeah.
So let's go back. You guys are obviously brothers. I don't know which one the better looking one is. Do you guys have an opinion?
We have no opinion.
Our sister looks a little more handsome than we do.
I'm not sure a woman is supposed to be called handsome, but today's a different world. So that's okay. So when you guys were little, would you guys grow up around cars? Was your dad, uncle, anybody into hot rods? How did you guys get the hot rod bug?
No, I got the hot rod bug. My parents went to a Knights of Columbus when I was 7, I guess, 8. It was a parade deal, and there was a 55 gasser that was going down in the parade. And when I saw that car, I was like, whatever that is, that's what I want to do and be and have. And that was kind of that was a big stepping stone for me. And I've had Hot Wheels and all the remote control cars growing up and all that, but that was the extent of it.
Yeah, we know always like cars, but
do you kind of remember?
How old were you?
I was about that age. It was about 7 or 8.
Okay.
And then I got into it just because, I've always liked cars. I was always Pontiac guy more so than Chevy guy. Have a Trans Am. Always loved those. But I was formerly in construction, had my own company for a little bit doing flooring, tile, and body took a little bit of a hit, looking for something different. Dean needed help at that point, so it kind of just worked out well, and that's been about 19, 20 years now.
Yeah.
So
it's been that long already.
So which one of you guys is older?
Which you got to guess that.
I'm not guessing.
I'm older. Daryl's my little brother.
But I got the gray hair for putting up.
Okay, but how many years?
4.
4 years.
Okay. So when you're little, you see that 55 Chevy, and then did it consume your life like a lot of us people did, or what did you do in high school to be around hot rods?
Well, in high school, my very first car was a 72 Nova that I learned how to do the body work and paint and all that because my dad's like, if you want a car, go get one. Well, I just liked the old cars anyway, and they were, back then they were cheap. So I went out and bought a $300 Nova, and that was my first car. And then my second car was a '68 Camaro, which I still have today. So unfortunately, the Nova got totaled in a car accident, so that one went away. And I got a '68 SS 396 car that I've had since, I don't know, 86, 87, 88. I don't know, somewhere in there. Late 80s, and I've had it ever since, still sitting in my garage. It's the only car no one's allowed to touch.
What was your first car, Daryl?
A '79 Trans Am, which I wrapped around the pole. And then after that,
So
just been.
saying you guys aren't very good drivers at a young age.
Well, he was actually rear-ended, so it wasn't his fault. He got hit by a drunk driver. Me, I was just stupid. So
You were having fun.
I was having fun.
That's a great story if you want to hear it. He oversteered, overcorrected, wrapped it around the pole in our neighborhood down the street.
4 houses down.
4 houses down from the house we lived in with our parents. He gets it off the pole, drives it home, parks it in the driveway, and acts like nothing happened and went in. 20 minutes later, the cops showed up. Hey, you get in trouble for leaving the scene of a crime. And he's like, how can I leave the scene of the crime when I can see the scene?
It from the house. I hit the driver's door in the pole on the right side of the street. So I came all the way around.
Yeah.
Up the curb, cracked the rims.
I kind of have this vision in my head of that scene in Tommy Boy. If the cop come up and open the door or something and the door falls off, what did you do? That's what I have in my head right now.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty close.
So, yeah. So that was my first car I wrecked, and haven't wrecked anything else since. So everything else has been good.
Did you hear? There's an old joke that the blonde read a thing. No offense to blondes, but I got some blonde jokes. The blonde read a thing in the news that most of the accidents happen within a half mile of your homes, so she moved.
Exactly.
Not a very good joke. I didn't say it was a good joke. I just said it was a joke. So, and you can see we have a cat we have a couple cats that like to make appearances every once in a while here in the podcast. So, yeah. So, what kind of first jobs did you guys have? One, did you guys have auto program in high school?
Yes, we had sheet metal,
autos, woodworking,
all that
stuff that they no longer have.
Home ec. I took all that. I took home ec. I took sheet metal. I took automotive, just because it was more fun to play with your hands and look through a book, So I did all that.
Yeah.
And then my very, very first job was selling lollipops.
Say that this is a first again. You sold. How did you sell? Like out of your locker at school? Were they laced with anything? You sold them in an alleyway, or?
I started off with the blow pops, 25-cent blow pops. Well, I would buy a bag of them. You get 25 in a bag. You paid like 87 cents for the bag. You go to school, you sell off 25 lollipops for 25 cents each. And by the time I graduated, that
was junior high.
The junior high, they shut me down in
8th grade, I think.
8th or 9th grade, because I had runners at other classes, and I would deliver my shipment to my 5 or 6 runners, and my mom at the end of the day would run me around to all the shopping stores to try to buy out all the lollipops they had. So it was a pretty big deal.
So instead of like that guy in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you were the sausage king. You were the blow pop king.
Yes.
Blow pop king, but the school shut it down because of the gum all over this everywhere. You can imagine where the gum went. Gum was everywhere,
and all the kids were jacked up on sugar.
Yeah,
well, that's not my problem.
And he paid his runners with broken lollipops.
Right?
Yeah, it happens.
It sounds pretty genius. It really does. I'm a little jealous.
He was, as a young kid, he was clearing over $100 a week.
Yeah,
selling lollipops.
Man, that's pretty good.
That's a pretty good racket.
Young entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So, what was your
that?
first real job?
Whoa! I made more money in that job than I've ever made in my whole entire life.
That pays better than Bill's
As a
hot
car
rod.
builder, as a car builder, you know that.
She should have stuck with lollipops.
Yeah.
My very first job in the automotive was I ran when I was going to UTI here in town. I ran the night. I was night manager at a Chevron that did pump. That's back when they still pump gas for people and all that. And I worked in the bay doing oil changes, lube stuff, minor mechanical work for people that would roll in off the streets and all that. So I did that for a few years when I was going to actually UTI and all that. So that was really my first automotive job.
What was your first real job? Did you go right into construction like you were doing? You said for a
my
while.
first real job, taxes came out of your check was Peter Piper Pizza here in Arizona.
I hated his Peter Piper pizzas when Carrie's dad was alive. They took their foster kids every Friday night to Peter Piper Pizza, and it's just one step above putting cheese on cardboard.
Yes, yeah. So I did that for a couple of years. Then I got into construction from there. Then I was in construction for 15 years, thereabout. So I worked for a builder, had my own company for a little bit, and actually I quit right when the housing market was crashing in the early 2000s, and then that's when I came on here. Yeah, I actually closed my company right when the market crashed. It was actually perfect timing.
Yeah, good lucky choice. So, I know some history of Dean, but we'll make it up there. What shop did you start working at after you left the dealership?
Arizona Street Rods here in town.
The gas station.
So then I went to Petrie Chrysler Plymouth when I graduated from UTI. So I worked at Petrie when they were here, and I did heavy line tech for about 8 years.
Yeah,
about 8 years. And then I left Petrie when they sold out, and I went on to work for Arizona Street Rods. In the interim, while I worked at Petrie, I did race car stuff. I helped one of my buddies race team and all that stuff.
That's when you started Insane Racing.
And I actually started a company called Insane Racing for pro street cars and doing back half of cars. And that's when the NMCA just came out with the fastest street car shootout and all that stuff. And we were building cars for that and working towards building some pro mods and all that stuff. So that was really.
And you were still working at Arizona Street Rods during the day?
Well, actually, at Petrie Chrysler Plymouth, I would work at during the day on that, and the weekends at night, Insane Racing was the company that we were trying to put together at the time. And then ironically, my whole life changed at that moment because my friend's family were retiring and they were moving to Fiji, so I had an opportunity to buy oceanfront property in Fiji, which was part of a resort. This all sounds like bullshit, but this is the fun part of the story if you want to hear a story. So they bought a resort. They bought a resort in Fiji. They retired and bought a resort in Fiji, and with the resort came 2 parcels of 5-acre parcels of oceanfront property that we could go, and myself and Ray, and we could open up our own either dive store or fishing store or whatever we wanted to do to contribute to the resort. So I sold everything I owned, and I shipped everything over to Fiji, and I literally had basically a duffel bag waiting to get on a plane to go to Fiji and start a life over there.
See, I've known you for a long time. I've never heard this story.
I know. So I save it for your podcast. I gotta have something new material. So from there,
so how old were you at this time?
20.
Early 20s. You just were with Trisha then?
Yeah, I want to say I was no older than 24, 25, somewhere in there. Maybe 26. I was before 30.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Before 30, but I don't know. I'm bad with time frames, but I was working at Petrie. I knew they were selling out, and I knew I was leaving once that happened. That opportunity came in. So it was basically around the time OJ was driving down the freeway in California. So whatever date that is, we were talking about moving to Fiji that date. So since I wasn't family, they all got green cards to go, and all that was real easy, and it was very difficult for me to get over there because I hadn't established a business yet. I wasn't part of the family in that deal. I was an outcast of the whole thing. Long story short, after spending almost all my money I had,
Phone calls were expensive
phone
then in
calls,
Fiji.
your landline phone calls to Fiji daily. We're racking up $2,000 a month in phone bills to Fiji, and I never made it there. His family wrote me a check for all my money back and said sorry it didn't work out, and we actually broke off a friendship. We were high school buddies and all that. I stayed here in Arizona. He went on to Fiji, was there for 15 years. They wound up selling the resort, and he went his way and I went my way. I went and got married to Trish, who like you met in the past, who I'm since been divorced from, but she had the little 29, the little orange 29 that used to drive around that I built her for and all that. So that's kind of what happened with me. And then shortly after that, I opened up Hot Rods by Dean. When after working for Arizona Street Rods, so I worked for Arizona Street Rods. When I didn't leave, I was like, all right, maybe I'll do a whole career change. So I worked for Arizona Street Rods for about 4 years or so. Ran that shop for a while. Did
I think I met you when you were there because when I'd come out, we'd always have a list of stuff to see in Phoenix when we went out to visit Carrie's dad. And I know I was at Arizona Street Rods at least 2 or 3 times through the years. And I
yeah,
think the first time
yeah,
I was there, or second time, you were working there.
yeah. That's about right. That's where I met a lot of people. That's where I met Magoo. That's where I met Brian and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Now again, I was just a kid working, so I meant nothing to these people. But Magoo took a really good liking to me. Brian took a really good liking to me, and we became friends outside of me even having a thought about having a shop. So that was the furthest thing
Mm-hmm.
from my mind at that time. I was just we were all car guys. We liked cars, and we all had that in common. And then how I got
Yeah,
really
Arizona
friendly.
Street Rods found a lot of really high end stuff. I remember the magazines and winning awards and stuff. So that was a pretty good shop to be a part
That
of
was a
back
great
then.
job. And yeah, and Rod was here in the valley for what, 40 years, 45 years. And the moral of that story is you don't burn bridges, because a lot of people left that shop disappointed, pissed off, and burned bridges. And when Rod retired, he called me and said, "Hey, I'm out. Come down here and root through my stuff. I'll give you a deal. I want out." It benefited me
Mm-hmm.
tremendously, and I'm still friends with Rod today. I mean, hard guy to work for, just for the simple fact that he had standards. And anytime you bring standards to the table, people don't like it because you got to work. Well, too bad. You know.
Mm-hmm. And didn't
So
that the
then,
kind of the story I remember? I might be a couple stories that there was a shop fire there at one time, wasn't there? And isn't that where there was a Boyd Coddington Woody in there? Then like the AC unit fell on it. Am I mixing two stories, or is that if I remember right?
that's all. That's all the same story, but I had already left by then. So I had already bowed out, and I was doing my own thing. And part of the push for me to have my own
Okay.
shop here was the simple fact that Rod had no competition, and I saw that pretty early on. And I would hear the mumblings and the grumblings of customers that weren't happy, and they all, not that I never stole any of his customers, but I just heard the mumbling and grumbling of people that weren't happy about his processes and his things that he did, how he ran his shop. That I thought to myself, man, if there was ever a day that I opened up my shop, I might be able to give him a run for the money. So, not really knowing I was going to open a shop, but like a lot of the good guys that came through there, I became friends with, got their cell phone numbers at that time. Cell phone pagers and stuff was coming in, and I was like, "Hey, let me keep your number, keep in touch, and if something ever happened, would you ever come work for me?" Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. So by the time I actually had my own shop, I had 10 employees, which made it really
Mm-hmm.
easy, because it was like half the battle is doing the work. If you can't do the work, can't do the work, you can't make any money. So unbeknownst to me, I had that advantage early on, but didn't really know it and wasn't planning on using it that way. Other than we were all friends, I liked the people that I did work with, and they were great guys, and they were driven like I was. So that made it really cool. So I left Rods, and then what, a year or two later, he had that fire, and it was a fire from they were varnishing a bedwood on a pickup truck on a Friday afternoon,
Left the rag.
left a rag over in the trash can by the parts department, and they all went home. Well, here in Arizona, when it's 130 degrees, that varnish rag caught on fire and it started near the parts department, caught the parts department on fire and burned the whole place down. And they lost, I think, 60
Yeah.
cars there. So it was a big deal.
Oh,
But again,
man.
since I didn't burn bridges, by this time I'm already in business. So the first phone call I made to Rob was, hey, when you get all through this whole entire thing with fire and all that crap, I want to sit down and talk to you about the do's and don'ts of what I need to do about my business, because you know how it is. You don't know until you've been through it. So Rod was like, yeah, you bet. Because, at that time, Rod's thinking, everything's fine. I'll get a payout. I'll go home. I'll retire. He wanted to retire anyway. And it didn't work out because the only way to make his insurance was he had to be whole again to retire. So he had to put the whole place back together. All the equipment, all the nut and bolts, tire machines, balancers, just for him to get his money. So he was planning on retiring and being done and had to start all over, brand new shop. And by then he was done. So that's where I really came in, and I took not that I took advantage of him, but he put me under his wing and said, hey, look, this is the things you need to do. These are the I's you need to dot, the T's you need to cross. And by the way, I'm retired. Come get all this equipment out of my shop. I don't want it. He's basically giving me shit just because he wanted out. So it worked out. It worked out very, very well for me. And like I said, we're still friends today because of it. Just because he went out of his way to take care of me.
Like you said, you heard some rumblings on how some customers didn't like what he was doing. And it's not, I know I have a lot of friends in the business and I hear stories and stuff. And it's not that somebody's doing something that's wrong. I have this thought in my head. It's like, not everybody is built to have a customer, shop owner relationship. Everybody's built different. So some people's personalities just clash. I know somebody that he was building this super high-end car for this guy like crazy, and he could not stand this guy. He recommended it to one of our buddies, and they're getting along great. It's not,
great.
Everybody runs their shop slightly different, but people's attitudes, people aren't built for everybody to be buddies and get along. So some people click and some people don't. So
right, it's a marriage. It has to work on both sides or it doesn't work. So, and there's a lot of that. Even when I go through that, I tell customers, look, I'm not your shop because I know we won't get along. And that's fine.
Yep.
It keeps us all out of trouble.
Or they'd rather stay friends than have a car,
Yeah. So when you started the shop, what kind of projects you got coming in? And of course, the local Arizona, Phoenix area street rod and hot rod guys, they know you because if they've dealt with Arizona street rods, you've kind of got that built in. So what kind of projects was coming through the door? I know I kind of classify you as you prefer traditional hot rods. I told a story and I saved the names to protect the innocent, and I'm going to save the names to protect slightly the innocent. But I think it was me and you and two other guys standing, and I think it was the SEMA show. We won't say what car it was. And I remember it was an unbelievable crafted, I'm just going to say modern street machine. And we were looking at it and it's like, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And it was you, and you go, if I got to build that crap, I quit.
Yeah, not to be disrespectful. I appreciate and I love the art, but it's not drivable. It's not practical. Mm-hmm. It's just not what I do. And that's everybody. And that's what I appreciate about our industry. Everybody has their way of doing things or come up with great ideas and make things happen. And they all look great and all that. But we also love what we love to do and what we love to build. So back to what you were saying, when I started my first shop, I had that opportunity with a lot of original builders because of Arizona street rods. But because I wanted to earn it myself, I turned all those guys away. So I didn't actually have those customers. I always said, look, you're Arizona street rods customers first. You're not mine. And until Rod's no longer here.
Another thing, me and a couple friends that have been on this podcast, we're all, these other two people and me and you, we're in the same age group. We're within all a few years of each other. And I've talked about this before. And a lot of us guys, I think, like you just said, we have respect for other shops that we look up to or respect their work. And if somebody has a car that didn't get finished at X shop, and I know that shop is a good shop, and they call me, unless I know, what happened between their relationship, I'm probably not going to take that car in. Because one, you don't
Exactly
want to
right.
be a customer stealer. I've had people do that before. Parts companies have stole, and I don't like that. Because one of my mentors that I can talk to, Bobby Alloway, he kind of taught
Mhm.
me that. He had a guy call him, and there was these one shop that built like 5 killer award-winning cars for this customer. This customer calls Bobby, says, "I want you to build a car," and he goes, "I won't do that because you're
Right.
customer."
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Well, call that shop because they're still buddies, and they got it ironed out." Is no, he's like an art collector, and if you let Bobby do a car, you let Hot Rods by Dean do a car, you let Rad Rides do a car, everybody's going to do the same thing. Like I just got done with Hot Rod of the Year at Good Guys Columbus, and I was one of the MCs, and it's like there were 5 amazing hot rods. Actually, there was 25 amazing hot rods there, but they're all different. Like I said, blondes, brunettes. It's like you want.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to build a hot rod. One guy built a Willie. One guy built a 32. One guy built a 33. It's everybody looks at something different, and I think that respect that guys in our generation, we are starting to get old. I don't see that in the next younger generation, in the mid 40s to younger guys. I don't see that respect in the industry. I know there is some that are, but overall, I don't see that.
I agree. I agree 100%. So that's what I said. So I told all those customers, and the reason why I started my shop, it was basically one customer who his name's Mark Bosak that I built the grade 8 truck for. That was my first customer. He had
Mm-hmm.
seen some of the stuff that I did, and he wasn't Rod's customer and all that. He owned a very large company here in town, and he's like, "Hey, look, I see what you're capable of, and I really would like you to build me a truck." He chased me for almost a year, and I kept saying, "Not doing it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just not doing it. I'm not having a shop. I don't want to go down that road." And it was basically 9/11 when I was unemployed. My wife was working at American Express, doing well, and all at the time, and everything was hunky dory. And I'm laying around living the fat life, eating bonbons with nothing to do, and the world's coming to an end. And I'm thinking, man, maybe I ought to call up Mark and ask him if he's still interested in building that truck. And I did. So he took me to lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and back to the respect thing. He we sat there at lunch. He slid a blank check, a business check, across the table and said, "Fill it out, start building my truck." And I'm like, I slid the check back and I said, "I'm not doing that." I said, "I'm going to earn this if I'm going to do it." And I said, I'm going to bill you every week. You're going to pay me what I
Mm-hmm.
did. And at any given time you're not happy with it, you pull the plug. And if you want me to keep going, you read the invoice, you're happy with what I'm doing, we'll keep moving along. That's my first build, and that's where I started Hot Rods by Dean. It was actually in my garage, and I built cars for myself, and I did everything I did back and then. Thinking about it was the school. I think we can agree to this. When we were kids and we were guys building cars, you never outsourced it all. You were like, well, this is my vision, my thought, my hands, my car, and I'm going to build it. How do I go to somebody else and have them duplicate what's in my brain and what comes out of my hands? How can you even achieve that? So I always said, I'm going to do my own thing. Well, then I come to find out, well, heck, you can build for people that don't really know. And they go like, we just trust in what you're doing. And I like your style. So build it and leave me out of it. And here we are.
So that truck, that was the blue and silver C10, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The
Not
first,
not our color
So
choice.
right
not
out
our
of the
color.
box, Detroit, you got a grade 8 with that truck, didn't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. In '08, we got a grade 8. Yes.
So do you remember our conversation at Detroit that year?
We have a lot of conversations. I mean, I'd be throwing you under the bus if I brought up something bad.
This was the start. Social media was just starting to be a thing, and it's not as prevalent now then as it is now. And I walked up to you and I go, "Are you running for the Riddler?" And you're like, "Yeah, I think so." And I'm like, "You've got completed pictures on the internet." And your face just dropped. So you guys wiped everything. I mean, there wasn't everything on, but that was still the gray area on how much you could have on the internet. And that I
Yeah.
remember that conversation was like, well, we don't have the whole thing, but we're going to erase. You got the social media stuff and you erased it really quick, really quick. So
Yeah. After I wiped myself. Yeah. Yeah, because I had no clue. And again, Mark is the one that wanted to debut the truck there. I told him, I said, I'm not driving all the way down there to drop this. I call it my bass boat. out in the water, and
we
then
didn't think I'd have a chance.
because we didn't have to think of a chance. And I mean, it is what it is. But they picked it because like they thought at the time,
Who does that to a truck?
little did they know who's going to do that to a C10. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing now?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was great that we won it and all that. And then years later, come to find out, the customer's colorblind. He don't even see blue. He thought it was green and silver the whole entire time. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I can't work with this truck. So then shortly after that, we had built Tom Kowalski's Merc, that 51 Merc that we took to the Autorama, and that really took us by surprise because I always wanted to build customs, but I never had the opportunity. I was always doing, at this time, I was doing all traditional hot rods, nothing, no Mercuries, no
That,
rag top.
isn't that Kowalski you just said? Didn't he have other cars built by other guys? He was having a car built at Pinky's, wasn't he?
Eric was building a couple cars for him at the time, and then he's a banker and he has some money and he wanted to have a couple cars built and all that. So he asked Eric to do some stuff, asked me to do some stuff, and I don't think it went any further than that because I think
He's more in the concourse deal. Guy,
yeah, he was in the concourse. He has a lot of Rolls Royces and that type of stuff, and I just don't think he dabbled in it. But I think for him it was like a test to see if he really liked it. I don't think he really understood it.
Yeah.
And what it took to do at the level that he would really want. And he still has those cars. Well, he sold the Mercury sometime later, but I think he sold all of them, got out of it. But in that respects, but
yeah, I know where there's another custom that was started up in Colorado.
Yeah.
I know where it is and who owns that. Yeah.
Are they finishing that car? That's
So
what Eric was at the Cadillac.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to say who's doing it or where they're debuting it, but
Okay,
it's on hold right now. It's in a pretty big collection, and it's in good hands. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
So,
Okay, good. That's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just
Because that was an amazing car.
kind of that name kind of jumped into my. I didn't know if he was still doing cars or whatever, but yeah, I know some guys that have done that are like the Pebble Beach type cars and have dabbled in hot rods, and it is a whole different world. But now we got some hot rods that are getting debuted at Pebble Beach and certain part of the shows, and I like the crossover of that. So, So what came after the Merc?
So the Mercury, then I don't know. Then I started building a couple cars for John Mumford, that's Roy Brizio's guy, and I got a little nervous with that because I know he's Roy Brizio's customer, and that went really well. So I built him a few cars, and that was a lot of fun. And again, he's a collector, so he, to show him and all that's not his thing, So, but we had built several
What'd
other
you build
cars
for
around that. 34 5 window, which when he came to me to build, he came to me that car. He goes, you know what I'm gonna have you build next? I'm like, what's that? He's like, a 34 5 window. You know why? I go, no. And he goes, well, I don't have one and I don't like them.
So just throw one again.
So we built him a nice little red Ram, little full fender car and all that. And then I had built him that black checkered 33 3-window coupe with the blown Arden in it.
Checkerboard firewall.
Firewall. And all that. It had all the Ken Monts on it and all that. I mean, and I was in my hog heaven there because that was like the gingerbread car had, money not an object, had all the trick stuff, which now a lot of guys are making repops and all that. But this is all original old speed parts, So that's
probably still one of my favorite cars we've done.
Yeah, that's still one of my favorite cars. And then also we did the car for Tim, the 33 black one that has the old rocket in it. And that one we got Hot Rod of the Year runner up. And that stuff doesn't bother me. We do a lot of runner ups, and I think we were truck with Lee's truck Hot Rod of the Year, truck with the runner up. We're always the bridesmaid, and it's like, so we just put out more. It's just more fun, It's but I don't.
When
other
are you
than
doing stuff
for who?
For Magoo?
So no, the only thing I did for Magoo was when I worked at Arizona Street Rods. At the time, my wife was going through college, And come to find out, I lived down the street from him, which I didn't know, within 5 miles, So, and he was building that 50 Merc, and he was doing the 502 with the fuel injection and all that. And for Magoo, that was like way out of his league. I mean, first off, the guy's a 29 guy. He building a Mercury. Here he's lost. And then he's got a wired fuel injection, which he don't even know that that was a thing, but he was doing it. So we became, we were already friends and all that. And he's like, hey, what do would you come over and give me a hand on this Mercury? And I'm like, well, what do you need? And he's like, well, I need somebody that can wire it and all that and to help me out with this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, well, let me come over and take a look at it. So I looked at it, had a neat little garage at his house, and his wife, Lois, is a sweetheart. And we were just really good friends. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do anything you want me to do. I'll leave work. I'll come here. All I ask is you feed me. Because my wife's going to school all the time, and I wouldn't see her, so I got to go to fast food or some crap, or I got to cook at home. It was just more fun hanging out with him, working on his car. We'd have dinner, and I go home, and I did that damn near 5-6 nights a week for like years, and then it became, well, the car's done, now what? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm coming over for dinner. We're gonna have some wine or something. So it was really, really cool.
Yeah, we had I think it was Steve Anderson on here, and he was talking a lot about Magoo and you and all. Magoo is one of those guys that, I mean, a lot of people give him credit for stuff that he's did, but if you're not really deep in the history, like I'm a history nerd, obviously,
Yeah.
and having that guy like as one of your mentors right down the street is, I mean, how much do you think you owe that to of all the hot rod stuff that you've done? I mean, it's just like all that stuff just hanging around in that garage and conversations at dinner had to rub off on you like immensely.
Yeah, it is immensely, and it's like that's why I thank Mark, for giving me the job, the first job to do, and then Magoo. It was great because our relationship went full circle. I got to a point where I would still confide in him, and he sat me down. And he goes, "Look, kid, I give you everything I know. I got no. He goes, you're doing shit now that I have no clue what you're doing because and everything's now we're into 3D printers and everything's machined and
Mm-hmm.
he's going down to the wrecking yard looking around for a part that he can look at it and go, I can make that work into something. That's where he's from.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
surpassed him with evolution of where these industry has gone. And then it was just like, look, all I want to do is sit around, drink, talk about good old times, and you're kind of on your own when it comes to the shop. And because he wanted to fire everybody, he's like, I wouldn't do this, I'd shut the shop down. He was just a grumpy old man because it's hard to run a shop, I mean, so he saw all that, he's like, look, I didn't want to talk about it no more.
Yeah, and I've talked about this a few times on the podcast. Like the guys like Magoo and guys that were our mentors in that next older generation, it's different. We're spoiled now. People call the 50s the good old days. I kind of think the good old days is now because we can order whatever we want. We can make everything. And like the outsourcing and all the shops working together. I got, you can get some 3D printing, you can get some machining and stuff. But like I always tell the story when I was on the Wild Tech Advisory Board, I got to be friends with Chuck Lombardo at California Street Rods. And he told me the story, him and his buddy in one of the magazines, they were one of the first ones to show a tech article, going to the junkyard, getting a Mustang 2 out and adapting into their street rod, which was hardcore 48 and older only, we're talking.
Yeah.
And now there's 25 companies you can order that suspension kit that, this is pre-drilled, this is bolt in, this is whatever. And yeah, those guys, they really had to, I mean, we're at the end of that I remember going to junkyards and getting stuff and got a cross member, my first one, and kind of copied it and built off of it because, one, I couldn't afford a cross member kit, but there wasn't that many of them. But now we're kind of spoiled on what we can order.
Yeah, and we're in that era of when the fuel injection just came out. If we wanted a fuel injected Camaro motor, we went down the junkyard, pull one out, put it in our hot rod, and we were all that. And now, again, like you said, everything's attainable. You can buy everything over the counter. So I do feel we're the last part of that last generation of guys rooting through a junkyard,
Yeah. And we couldn't just get on Facebook Marketplace or get on Google or eBay because there wasn't anything back there when we started.
Yeah, I also wonder, I source parts, look for hard to find parts, and eBay's a necessary evil. It comes up really handy now and then. But back then, that time, it's amazing what they had to go through to get parts. When you're only looking in your town,
Yeah,
you're looking throughout the world at your fingertips.
There was an old guy when I lived in Illinois, there was an old guy in Iowa, big farmer, and he had a bunch of cars. He had two guys just building basically mostly customs and a few street rods for him. But when he passed away, I mean, it was a 5-day auction with 4 auctioneers. One day it was tractor auction with RFD TV was live. I mean, it was like I bought my 40 Merc that I have to build from that auction. And the coolest thing that I remember, I tried buying them, and they were with a bunch of other stuff. They just lumped them in at the end. I really wanted some of them. He had the old school Hemmings Motor News, with the bars on the front where you could take notes. And, page 112, I have pictures coming in the mail from this 36.3 window. That was their internet back then. And he had all these notes on the front. And he had 350 cars in that, some done, some not done. But think about how much longer it took him to source those cars and the parts instead of just searching and calling or getting on eBay and buying it and having it shipped in. It's like they would take 3 weeks to get pictures in the mail or whatever like that. And it's like I really wanted that just as like a history souvenir.
Well, it's crazy how it was a lot harder to do stuff back then.
Yeah. We're really sounding old right now. You realize that, right?
Okay, so there is that. I mean, we are that next generation. We are those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're the next ones to go out.
Hopefully not for a little while. Yeah. But I know some of the guys our age are already starting to retire. That means they've done something a little better than I have.
Well, I got about 5-6 years. I'm leaving it to him unless whatever he wants to do. So that's all I got.
I got about 10. So
yeah, I always joke that I'm up for adoption, but I've seen I don't want that big of a deal. I don't want that many employees. I don't want that much property. I don't want that.
No, but I'm also doing it that's my retirement. That's my rent. That's my mailbox money.
Yeah. So I like to jump out of order a little bit, but like the very first time I stopped at your place, the Harley industry was really, really huge. Like all the TV shows, and Burgett's was right across the street from you.
Yep. Listen to this. When I was moving in that week, I didn't know Roger was across the street because I still remembered him being down on McDowell down the street from Rod's place. So because I knew Roger and I bought this place here, and I look across the street and I'm like, oh, that's Roger's place. Holy crap, that's a hell of a facility. Not understanding at that time, there were 6 semis a day back down that dead end, blocking all my driveways, loading bikes all day long.
6 semis a day, not a day.
Yeah.
A day.
And then 2.
Wow.
And then I watched it go from that to 2 to none to a couple every month to
bringing bikes back
to because he had dealers set up all over the United States and probably around the world. I mean, and they were shipping they were building bikes like crazy. It was
people don't know the Harley world. He kind of had his own kind of deal there for a while. He did big tube frames. I painted a couple of them for people that just bought kits and stuff.
Oil frames. The frames had oil. Yeah. That's where they held all the oil.
Is Burgett? Okay, yeah. Is Burgett's even still around? Is he still building bikes, or is it like a lot of guys left the industry when the motorcycle stuff kind of went down?
I don't know how much truth there is to it, but I heard that him and his wife separated. She wound up with the parts end. He wound up with the bike stuff. It all kind of went away, but I heard he's in Colorado. Last we heard, still, doing one-offs or, still working on bikes, but to what extent, I honestly don't know.
No, cool. I just always thought that was cool the first time. You're like, look at all those trucks over there. Look at all those bikes going. So, yeah, I think I went over there once, but they were closed or something.
Well, yeah, and they used to be our polishers, so we used to walk across the street, and everything we had polished here was across the street.
And they did
phenomenal work. And then they all went away because the whole bike thing crashed. So, and then of course we got Jim Nazi right up the street here too. He's still there. So I mean, we're surrounded. We got Trask up the road. I mean, all the big bike guys are here, right by us.
And now the big
Very
Borgette
cool.
shop is all marijuana grower. That's what's over there now.
Oh wow. Okay.
So the smell will knock you over some days. And then the bad thing is, though, they still have the Borgette sign up. So no one knows what they do there. And from my understanding, they're one of the largest under roof pot growers. And we'll get customers asking us who's smoking pot around here. It's like, it ain't us, it's the people across the street.
You know,
So, but there's customers not asking, thinking we're a bunch of potheads over here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a down on that.
Well, they heard about the distribution center of the blow pop, so that's what they're thinking.
exactly. Yeah, too funny.
I've seen a movie about that, but he sold something else. I think his name was Tony Montana or something like that.
I'm not sure I know that one.
No.
You have obviously too much time to watch movies.
No, I don't sleep well at night, so I always have the movie channel on.
All right.
Because I'm stressing about cars and trying to lay down. Maybe I should buy something from your neighbors that would help me sleep. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, little gummies or something.
Okay, so what other milestone cars were coming through the shop about that time? When did you do? Again, I remember one time you did the Hot Rod Power Tour with your son when he was little. And I remember the story that you said you kind of mentioned it, and he didn't get too excited. You didn't know if he was going to be a car guy. And then you went into his room and seen that he had a map that he was planning this. Then you're like, oh, crap, now I got to get the car done because he really wants to do this.
Yeah, because ever since I've been younger and they started doing that power tour, I always wanted to do, a section of it or go do it. So I don't remember what year that was, but Zach was young, probably 8.
Yeah. So 10,
and whether my son does it or not, I wanted him to at least be part of it, to at least know what options are out there in life. So I was building a 64 Galaxy, 64 Galaxy for myself with a Coyote 8 stack overdrive, kind of old man's car. And I really wanted something big and roomy so that I could drive cross country and all that. And then I remembered about the power tour, and a buddy of mine here in town, Bob, was like, hey, we're going to go on the power tour next year. It was Bob with his Kaiser and Bob with a 40 Ford. And I'm like, well, heck, that'll give me incentive to get my Galaxy finished. And I said, I'll take my son and we'll go. So I had made a mention to Zach about, hey, if I go drive from here to Wisconsin to Mississippi back over to Phoenix, would you go? And he's like, well, I got to drive that much. I don't know. And he kind of just blew it off, And I'm like, okay, whatever. When I went back to whatever I was doing. So a couple of days later, I walk in his room and he's got a map and he's like, and where are we going? And I'm like, what? And he's like, well, yeah, Mom said that you said we're going to start from here. We're going to go to here and we're going to go to there. He goes, I just want to see how much is involved. So I took that and made it even bigger. So we took that map, I framed it, and I did stick pin, red, blue, green, yellow, white stick pins. And I made a chart on the side of it with them. And then basically how much fun which each section was, driving through New Mexico and Texas. I mean, how much fun is that? So we got a whole bunch of duds in there, like going through Texas. In the middle of nowhere, we got White Dot, but man, all the fun we had in Wisconsin with the cheese turds, as he calls them, that got a red dot. So he mapped out the whole entire thing. And I made him keep a logbook every day so that when we got back, he could explain it to his mom because his mom stayed home. He still talks about that trip today and how much fun it was and how cool it was. And he was around 8 or 9. Yes, around 8 or 9. So old enough to know, but old enough to be antsy.
Yeah. How old is he now?
He's 19.
Oh,
just graduated. Just finished freshman year of college.
He wants to be a mechanical engineer. Cool. Yeah.
Cool. As I like to say, he's going to get a real job.
Yeah.
I hope. Yeah. So
you don't want to do this, which is good.
He wants to dabble in it, but he helps me with all 3D printing and all that stuff. He's good with SolidWorks and doing all that stuff, so we can build anything. And it's all through him because he knows that.
Dave Tucci, again, a guy our age, his son Dom went to
Yep.
school, Syracuse, learned all that, and just, Dave's an amazing metal shaper, built amazing cars, the Riddler Grade 8 cars, and all that type of stuff, and SEMA builds. And now with Dom there, with his modern technology, it's just opened up a whole different thing, not only in the hot rod world, but just around their area of doing fab work for other industries, because he learned all that, the 3D printing and the scanning and all that. He just brought the high-tech stuff. And now Dave says, it's Dom's shop, and I just work for my boy. He goes, I went from being Dave Tucci to now that's Dave Tucci's little son. Now I'm Dom's dad. And he goes, it's the coolest feeling in the world.
Exactly. So that's a very cool and satisfying feeling, yes.
Yeah. So, okay, after that car, I remember you did.
I did the road tour cars. I was doing road tour. I started way back when with doing the road tour cars.
The 36 Ford.
The 36 Ford.
That was at the old shop.
That was at the old shop.
People, we've had Tom Vogeley on the shop on the podcast. We've had Zane Cullen that he built a road tour car. Explain. One, there was a magazine called Street Rodder that a lot of people in younger generation that listen to podcasts don't know, which spun into the guys that used to do Street Rodder are doing modern rodding now and all that stuff, the In the Garage media guys. So they're still in the industry. But Street Rodder, every year for, 25 years, they had a shop build a new car, and then they rode to it. Jerry Dixie, we've had him on the podcast, and the stories that guy has, we could do a 3-hour podcast every week, and he wouldn't be able to tell all the stories.
No, there's phenomenal stories, and I'm part of some of those stories, which hopefully we never get to. So that's all good stuff.
There's one there's a lot of these guys, Wings Callahan and Jerry Dixie. It's like the parking lot stories come out, and I try to bring up some of them stories that I've heard, and they're like, some parking lot stories need to be left in the parking lot. They don't. I was like, dude, what do they call it? The statute of limitations has ran out. But yeah, some of them is like, no, those don't need to come out. I did get a streaking story from Wings Callahan, though. But, yeah.
Well, there's that. So I started because of my friendship with Brian and being at Street Rodder and all that. And I do a lot of work for Brian with the magazines, him personally and all that. And we do stuff all the time.
Which is Brian Brennan.
Brian Brennan from In the Garage Media now. And I mean, he has his own room in my house, so he stays with me all the time and all that. And it works out really good. But again, we're friends first. And everything else is just, we got to, I got a business, he got a business, and we all kind of work it out. So I started doing the road tours. I don't know when the first year was.
You started business in 01, so 2003.
Yeah, maybe 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. And I did the 36 of J.B. Donaldson's, the glass car. Did that one, and that one went a little rocky, but got our feet wet, learned a lot. And the reason why I did it, because it proves to the shop what we are capable of, but also where we need to learn and grow. Because we would thrash these cars, get them done, hand him the key on a Friday, and he's off to whatever car show the following week. Well, heck, he might be driving it to Chicago, so, and I don't know where he's going. And that as a builder is the best. We build a lot of cars that sit in guys' garages and never get going around the block. Well, I don't know how good we are by that. So that was good for the shop to say, hey, look, can we build a quality car? Because I respect Brizio. They build a car, they hop in and drive across country. You don't think nothing of it. Well, that's what I want to be known for too, that, hey, not only are they good-looking cars, but they work, they're functional. You can get to point A to point B. You can do, because they're rolling art, and they should do what they say they do. So we started building a couple cars, and the car you're relating to is the 66 Ford Fairlane. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Which one in the order was that? Was that the last one you built, or was that? I don't remember all the ones you built.
That was the second to last. It was that in the truck.
Yeah.
Impala.
No.
Or the Impala was.
I'd have to look back through I built a lot of them. I mean, I built 6 or something like 5 or 6 or 7, and had my hands, and a couple other ones were just kind of shit falls apart.
That's more than I thought. I remember I drove the Red 59 once on Power Tour. It was the year after it did the tour, and they had it, and they were hauling cars to different stops on the Power Tour. And since my wife works for a company that runs Hot Rod Power Tour, I was them low. I drove that car the same day I got to drive Project X to the trailer.
Oh, fun. That's a cool day then. Yeah, that's a really cool day.
No
So
offense,
I
but I
think it was-
enjoyed driving Project.
Well, no kidding.
A little more history there.
Yeah. I'm not even offended on that one. I would be offended if you didn't feel that way. So I think it was after the 59 Impala we did the
The
Fairlane. And that would have been
Probably, that was a cool car.
to this day they still say that was one of their best cars that never got seen. And what happened was I had finished the car unlike all the other ones. I actually finished that car ahead of schedule. I took it to here for the Cruise on Central, which was a big car show. Lit the world up on fire. Went to Sanderson Ford for their all Ford show. I put about maybe 300 miles in the car because I usually do that, about 500 miles on each car before I give them over to the customer. This one we were actually able to build the car,
Yeah.
put some miles on it before I handed the keys because that car had a lot of custom stuff. I mean, the cross ram intake on the Coyote, custom made. I mean, there was so much one-off custom stuff on it, which we normally didn't do. Normally we put a Coyote.
Didn't it have
It had what?
didn't it have 6 lug wheels like an old NASCAR or something?
No, so that's actually funny because no, it did not. And if you actually look at the pictures, it's actually a 10 lug.
It was the dual bolt pattern.
Oh,
steel.
okay.
Since the Steelies were on it,
Okay.
so I filled the other wheel holes, and then everybody freaked out. What? I'm like, hey, this thing's got so much horsepower, it just needs more lug nuts, you know? But
Jerry Dixie hated us for that because that was the first question everyone had. Jerry just got so sick of that question about the wheels.
why it had 10
Well,
lug
you
nuts
can't
on
let
it.
Jerry. You gotta make him earn his money.
Exactly.
Yeah, he did.
So we did that for aesthetics because the car had no trim rings, no center caps, no nothing, and it looked unfinished with 5 holes filled, 5 holes unfilled.
Mhm.
So we've just put a little triangle on the start one that's you take off. That's the holds the wheel on, and the other ones were just dummies. And of course, that's number one question everybody on the planet had to ask: where'd you get a 10 lug hub from? And I'm like, well, they all come 10 lug. What are you talking about? Especially from
So
Willwood,
I
right?
know there's a story we're going to get to on this car, but he did part of the tour because I think that was the only one time I went to the. No, I was thinking. I thought I
Well-
seen it at Woodward Dream Cruise.
Okay, maybe. I think what happened was he picked the car up, took it to that, and then brought us back to do the final wrap up of it. So, and then they were hitting the road for the rest of the year. Wasn't to come back. So that is correct.
He was on to Bakersfield.
And he was on his way to Bakersfield. Is that where you picking up with the story on the way to Bakersfield?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're smiling, so yeah. We're supposed to leave that in the parking lot, though.
No, this one, this story needs to be told of what we talked about that with Jerry. So, this was. He says this was a hotel that he'd stayed at many times, and he parked it like where he usually parks these cars. It was like one of his normal stops. When you're road dogs, you're like, oh, I really like this hotel. The restaurants are close. The staff is friendly.
Right.
So you'll stay at a place again. I love
But
Little
keep in
America
mind-
as you're driving through flight.
And then keep in mind, that same day, he picks a car up for me, drives it over there in his favorite little hot spot, parks it in the parking lot.
Mhm.
That car is now getting debuted on every newsstand across America
Same day.
on the same day. So that car hits
Mhm.
newsstand that day on the cover of every newsstand. Other than that, I got nothing to say.
And then Jerry comes out the next day, and it is gone.
Never to
And
be found to this
It's
day.
yeah,
Nothing.
still not to be found. I always say, oh, somebody seen it, somebody followed him, and like there's a story about a Rad Rides car getting stolen in Canada, one-off 37 steel
Right.
Roadster
Yeah.
convertible thing. Well, they got it back 8-10 years later, and most of the parts were
Right.
still there because when somebody steals something, they don't realize, oh, they're stealing a trailer, with that one. Well, I can't sell these
Yeah.
parts because they're all one-off. Sometimes the
Right.
thieves get a little smart. I know a guy that had a 59 Impala, Joe Nichols from Illinois, that was built, Customer Ride of the Year finals. Somebody stole his truck and trailer up when he was in the Seattle area, and they found the truck, or they found the car down a dirt road with the strap still on it. They just pushed the car out because they knew they couldn't sell it, and yeah, they found it with barely a scratch on it. Yeah. But I figured that something like that, when something gets stolen, it's probably instantly just like gone in 60 seconds. It's in a shipping container. It's in some other country.
Overseas. Yeah,
it's
that's
overseas
what
somewhere.
I feel it ended up overseas somewhere.
I haven't found. I've been to Sweden quite a bit since then. It's not there. I've been looking, and if I find it, I'm driving it back because it was a
funny.
cool car.
I mean, it's not funny, but people still talk about that. So I work with a company. Well, they're one of our sponsors. It's Miller Welding is one of our sponsors of our podcast. They sponsor the build, and all the sponsors they get the tech articles, and that's their give back. And then they do a finish article and the story, and it's all based on ROI, return on investment. How many eyes see it on the tours? How many people see it in the magazines? We get our address on our websites plugged in the tech articles, and we started doing some stuff that next year with Miller stepping up our program a little bit more. And they're like, we make sure our contracts, everything gets done because we never got our final stuff on that. I go, that's nobody's fault. I says, that's not the magazine's fault. I says, the car got stolen. And, so yeah, people, even in the sponsor world, people still talk about that car.
Yeah, but I was a sponsor myself, and I built the car. I got no ink for it all year.
We were supposed to have that at the Grand National Road Show.
I was supposed to have the Grand National Road Show. I wanted to have it all different my events. I got nothing. I took it to a Cruise on Central and a Sanderson Ford show, and I got the cover, and that day it came up missing. So
you sure it was a good car? It didn't break down on Jerry, did it? And he just drove it off a bridge and just left it? He didn't do that, did he? Would he do that?
It's so good that they still don't have to service it yet. That's why it's never been seen. They're still driving.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was a great car. I'm not, there's some Fords I don't like. I'll talk about my non-love for Mustangs, but that body style is really good from the factory. That had the right, it was just, like you say, it was probably one of the best road tour cars that's been done. There's a couple that I love that Troy Ladd built too that's in the top handful. And but yeah, that was a really just everything on it was just cool and right, and yeah, just a bitchin' hot rod.
Well, it had the Roadster Shop chassis under it. It was all custom, intake and all that. It was
Custom
fast,
hood.
custom hoods, custom interior, custom cages. It just went on and on and on, and it's just with that day we all took a hit. The builders, the suppliers, Miller, everybody. Just it's what it is, and it. Unfortunately, I really thought it'd come back into somewhere along the line.
Yeah, it'd show up.
And you never know. You never know what 10 years will bring. Stranger things have happened, as you know, strange.
Yeah, I would look for cars especially like that one, because it would jump out. You see these coverage online. And, I went to this car collection that's in a bunker in Dubai that these rich guys just buy them, never drive them, they never clean them. And I know guys that have cars and collections that have been bought that it just looks like they haven't even dusted them off in 10 years.
Right.
And I'm always looking in the background. I was like, is that car in there? Is that car in there?
Yeah, so that was a pretty sick feeling, really sick feeling to do all that.
How was that call? What was the call did Jerry call you that morning and tell you that it was missing?
I think actually who called me was Tim Foss called me.
Yes, I believe so.
And I was out running, doing some errands, and he called me and says, "Hey, we got an issue. The road tour car came up missing last night." And I'm like, "Missing? How does a car like that is now sitting on the newsstand vanish? I mean, who in their right mind would steal a car like that, knowing it's on the newsstand, knowing it's on the circuit all year long, and that came up missing and never be seen?" So I mean, and it's still
there was a story. I don't know if you this or I've just got somebody that I've talked about that will talk about it when they get on here. Anyway, there was like a big 60s Impala that Carcraft built in the 90s maybe. Had, special paint, orange and stripes when graphics was cool. And that car come up missing. But then some guy come across the fenders in a junkyard and something else. They ended up finding most of the car. It was stripped because it still had that special, the only car that had that paint on.
Right. Yeah.
But, yeah. I say it's in some like Dr. Evil's collection from, do you like my fart, baby?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen that often because people know, like, when you steal something like that, it's well known. I mean, you're asking to get caught. You know what I'm saying? It's just, but whatever. It's somewhere out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's crazy. So obviously, I've known people that's done giveaway cars for different organizations or something, and they'll say, "I ain't never doing that again." So obviously, you got bang for your buck because you did so many of them, being in the magazines and getting the coverage and the tech artists. It gave you an insight of like looking over your shoulder as you were building these cars. I mean, I always enjoyed. I mean, I'm a magazine nerd, so I always enjoyed reading all the articles of all the giveaway cars. I was always interested in what they were doing. They were always built different stuff. Zane built a Roadster pickup truck, and Jerry didn't like Roadster pickup truck or Roadsters at that time. He's getting older, man. I want windows and air conditioning and all of that, and I totally understand that. But he's drove every type of vehicle across country doing them in them 25 years that they did that Street Rodder
And
Road
been
Tour
broke down
series.
in most of them. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. If you're going to
You know,
drive them,
but
you're going to fix them.
yeah, but that's all part of the trip, and that's what I enjoy about it. But like I said, as a shop and my friendships and building, I look at this industry. You got to give back as much as you're getting. You know what I'm saying? And we're fortunate enough. You and I
Mm-hmm.
both are. We're fortunate enough to be in this industry, doing what we're doing, loving what we're loving, not working a day in our life because
Mm-hmm.
we're playing with cars. So for me to give back and help out other people and show the industry what can be done and all that, then also have the
Mm-hmm.
guys be involved in it and say, look, whatever we build, they're going to go drive it and put 10,000 miles on it this year. That's just cool.
Yep.
That's just what it's all about. So that's why I never
Yeah.
shied
And
away
that
from
and
it.
that's what they kind of forget this whole hot rod street rod industry. When street rodding started, like I grew up within an hour from where the first ever street rod nationals was. I wasn't born until the next year, but there was a lot of hot rod street rod history around that area. And those guys in those T buckets and all them type of early hot rods, they drove the hell out of them. Like there's a guy, I'm blank on his name right now, older guy that works for Good Guys now because he used to drive to all the Good Guys. He's got a small block, like Delorto carved, flamed T bucket with a trailer, and him and his wife, I asked him this weekend, have put over 560,000 miles on a T bucket. And he's got curtains for the rain and the ice and all that stuff. And then we got into that generation that Pro Street cars and trailer queens. And I put 30,000 miles on a Pro Street car, and everybody thought I was out of my mind. And now we're getting
Yeah,
back to that, how important
I think
road
so.
tours are. And I think that Street Rodder Road Tour series was helped promote that a little bit more. Good Guys does road tours, Barrett Jackson does road tours, Hot Rod Power Tours doing two of those, and there's drag and drive events and all that. So I think it's awesome that the basis of driving your car is coming back to hot rodding again.
It's very important. I mean, it's very important as a builder
Yeah.
because you got to be able to drive and know if you're building a quality car. If it sits in a parking lot or sits in some guy's garage, you don't know how well of a job you've done. You know,
Yeah, and there is. I'm okay with Trailer Queen still and stuff. I
yeah,
always give Kenny Davis credit for this, but he said he got it from somebody else that says, they don't ride the horses to the Kentucky Derby. But there are horses that they do trail rides and they ride long distances. Same with cars. So there's room in this industry for everything.
all
There
of
it
it.
is. Yeah.
And the more we're doing, the better off it is for everybody.
Yeah, right. So after the road tours, what kind of cars were you guys putting out? I remember, some black
Well, I think
traditional street rods with black tiles. I remember you still got your Camaro. You keep saying almost every year that you're going to let your boy autocross it at Scottsdale, but I've not seen him do a lap yet. I don't think, has he? You've
well,
done a couple laps, didn't you?
yeah, he's just not interested, really, unfortunately. And now that he's off to college, I tried building cars with him. He just doesn't. He likes to here and now. Is it going to be done tomorrow? No. When's it going to be done? Like in the 2 years? Well, I don't want to wait that long. And then
Yep.
unfortunately, his era, he looks at all these McLarens and all that, and he goes, "Well, no matter what we build, it'll never be that, and it doesn't have a warranty, and it's what I'm saying, and it's a here and now thing."
But as soon as you threaten him to get rid of something,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to get rid of it.
And so there's a connection there because, like Daryl said, the minute I say, "Hey, I'm going to sell my Camaro," well, why would you do that? I'm like, well, you don't want it, and I'm getting tired of tripping over it. I don't think you should sell that one. Well, there's an interest there,
No.
you know. So where
Yeah.
it'll come back, I think in time as he gets older and appreciates things differently, it may be a thing that maybe when he has kids that the three of us sit down and build a car
I
again and all that.
I see a future in you guys's. There's going to be a day that him and his kid are going to grab their grandpa and do the power tour, and that grandpa's going to be you.
And that'd be awesome. I mean, how full circle cool would
Yeah.
that be? You know, I'd
That
be
would
the old
be-
guy in the
yeah.
back ruling on everybody,
Yeah.
telling them he missed a turn.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be fun.
Whose turn is it to change grandpa's diaper?
Exactly. I did it last. You know? So then, yeah, we did a lot of traditional cars, and now I think we just finished that 29 on 32 rails again
Yep,
for
the blue one.
the blue one. We're just finished up a
What's in the
33 3
Good guys
What's it in?
covering the
I
good
just
guys.
got it the other day.
Cover
yeah,
the good guys.
covers the
Okay.
Good Guys Gazette, and they just did a photo shoot for it for the modern rotting and all that. So that'll be out. That'll be coming out in a couple. You know, we built the C10, that radical C10 pickup truck that went over very well, but it won the Triple Crown of Rotting top 30 and all that. But that's where the whole shop's going.
Yeah,
It's all going towards.
I help at the Triple Crown. I'm one of the MCs and interview guys there. And then early in the morning, before we start doing all the interviews, I help park the cars. And there was over 450 cars that pull onto the judging for 30 awards. So to get that's a big deal to get a 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at first, I thought that was a freshen up of the blue and silver truck, but it's not. And I think some people thought that too. And you're like, no, but that means that everybody remembered that truck that was one of the first cut up C10s.
Well, that's slated to redo this year, starting next year. The blue and silver one, we're going to redo that truck later on. So, but this was a
Are you
different
going to make it
customer
green like
build.
Yeah, maybe so. With bigger flake.
It's not going to be a bass boat this time. I guarantee you that. I'm going to have some say in this one.
I like the flake in that. I really do.
No, I don't mind it. It was flashy and all that. And it's but it is what it is. So, but now everything in the shop is, I mean, we're doing an A-team van. Even Bobby's doing vans. Vans are popular. We're doing
like a serious 18 van with the 18 the stripe on it.
It's an over the top 18.
Over the top 18 van. We're talking way deep into this thing. He has. Once it's all done, he has all the guns on all the series. He has everything that goes with this 18 van. He's been in connection with all 18 people. They all want to come in and do photo shoots, including Mr. T, who's hard to deal with.
And he's younger than us.
And he's younger than us because he's from England, Germany.
And loves 80
and loves 80 nostalgia to a sickness.
That sounds like a really fun project. It really does sound fun.
Well, I told them no for a long time, and then I'm like, "Look, you sick son of a gun! If you keep it up, I'm actually going to take your money." So we did, but it's actually going to be a beautiful van, over the top, the nicest 18 van ever been done, guaranteed you. And it's going to be pretty spectacular.
That's the phrase I didn't know I'd hear tonight. Same thing as about the place in Fuji. There's a couple phrases I never thought I'd really hear in my life.
Yep.
The nicest 18 van ever. To get that van done, you need a new top shirt, and that needs to be the tagline. You need an 18 van Hot Rods by Dean shirt. I'll rock one.
Exactly. So
yeah,
that's coming up. We have Pro Touring Camaros. I think we're kind of seeing the end of that, but I got 2 of those we're doing: Novas, Chevelles, a 36,
36 traditional.
Yeah, Cabriolet
we're kind of doing. So there's some.
So you've been doing. You really like really street rod stuff, 48 and older stuff, and obviously, as you're mentioning in the build, you're starting to see more muscle cars, but you're still getting some pre-48 stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah. But it's back in the day, you walk in my shop, and there was all pre-40.
Yeah, if we had a 55 Chevy, that would be a new car.
And now
that's an old car for the most part.
So, but we still turning out about 3 cars a year, and have since I've opened my doors. So it's just crazy that I'm going into this is gonna be my 25th year.
Next year will be 25
Next year
years.
will be 25 years. 3 cars a year minimum. And I'd say I had a
Yep.
pretty good run of it. There's 15 guys that work
You
here,
mentioned
and
a gasser that tripped your trigger. There's a little bit of cool story about you have a 55 gasser that's been in a bunch of magazines and stuff,
correct.
and then when you talk about the parts line that you have for the Tri-5, sometimes you come to the Tri-5 Nationals, but tell the story.
Right.
I don't have luck like this, and you don't have to share all of it if you don't want to, but you told me how you ended up with that 55 that was your gasser car.
Well, as I told you, you get treated in life the way you treat others. Is that correct?
I'd like to think so, but I've not had really as good a luck as this story is. So
No one does.
Well, then what you have to do is look in the mirror and say, I'm not doing a good enough job. So,
but
yes.
I have a thing about animals. Animals love me. So if you're a good person in the world, you don't upset Mother Nature, and animals
Okay.
will love you. Like I got a cat laying right here chilling because I'm an animal person. So if you're a bad person, animals can sense that.
But also on a side note, going into this 55 story, you got to realize Dean is a wheeler dealer. He's the only person I know that has sold a car for more than he's asking and has purchased a car for less than he offered.
Those are both true statements.
Okay.
So there. Okay, so you got that story? Yeah. So the 55, I always wanted to do a 55, but as we all know, I have a couple 55, but I wanted to do a gasser, and I thought to myself, there's no way in heck I'm going to go out and buy a body, buy parts, buy this, buy that, and build a gasser that sits in my warehouse and does nothing with it to take out once in a blue moon, because it's just a waste of effort, time, money. Impractical, but man, do I want one. Just what we do, So in the back of my mind has always been being the kid watching that gasser go down the street when I was 8. I thought how cool would it be to have one of those, but work gets in the way and all that. So I have quite a few friends in the valley here. Some of them, quite a few of them, are police officers, so they're always going on calls. They're in yards, they're in houses, they're in garages, they're in buildings, and all that. So trying to make a short story out of a long story, but the lady down the street calls me, who had just purchased a building property, literally on Third. I'm on Central, she's on Third, and the same road. And she's like, I got your name from Mike. He's a police officer. And she's like, I called him to tell him to come get my car out of my yard. So I'm calling you for you to call you to come get this car out of my yard. I'm like, so I'm thinking 88 Olds Cutlass 4-door. Like, I don't really want that. So I'm like, well, what is it? She's like, I don't know. I just bought a building and this stuff is in the back of my yard. And I'm like, okay, well, where are you at? Because I'm thinking I got to go all the way across town to look at 88 Olds. I'm not doing it. So she's like, well, I'm right here on 3rd Avenue and Lone Cactus. And I'm like, well, shit, I can walk there. I mean, it's like right here. So I'm like, it's worth looking at 88 Olds if it's right here. So hop in the car, go over there. I meet the lady at the front office. She was building a puppy, like, sitting place where you drop your dog off, your pets. They take care of them for the weekend, for the week, month, whatever, while you're on vacation and all that. And and she needed the place emptied out, and there was a bunch of trash in the back of the lot and in the building. So I'm like, okay. So first we walk in the building, and there was a big block 454 sitting there. There's some trash and some trinkets and whatever. And I'm like, okay, what else you got? She opens up the back door, and on the pavement lies a 55 Chevy 2-door 210. And I'm like, well, nobody wants those. I mean, so then I'm like, well, where's the rest of it? Because it's literally a shell laying on the ground. She's like, I don't know what's here, but I want it all gone. So we start rooting around behind these trees. There's fenders, there's doors, there's the frame, there's this. Well, what's in this Connex? She opens up the Connex, and there was all Model A parts, and there was what, 100
of tires,
100 of the shifter cart tires, And I said, well, now if I got to take all this out of here, now I got to get my guys. It's going to cost me all day stopping work to empty all this out. I said, "Are you kidding me?" She's like, "I just want it gone." Had it all out of there in 4 hours because I'm thinking whoever owned this property before is coming back for his stuff.
Yeah.
So I brought the 55 back to the shop, and that's where that story starts. Because I looked at Daryl, I'm like, well, this is perfect. Now I got to come up with a name, and I'm going to call this gasser the Gimme Gimme Gasser. Got the car for free. Now I need to go to all the people that owe me my favors, because you know how the industry is. Oh, let me borrow this and
Mhm.
I'll get it back, and that never happens. Or, hey, let me you take care of this, and then I'll get you on the other end, and that never happened. So I built that 55 Chevy Gasser with all the paybacks of all the stuff from people in the industry that owed me over time. And you're right, the only thing that's not on it is American torque thrust to magnesium wheels, because I'm not putting them on it because I'm not selling the car with them. So it has Hala brands on it, but they're aluminum ones. It's the only thing I don't like about the
Allegedly,
car.
you have a pretty extensive. You brought it up. An extensive. You've got a lot of
I do
magnesium
not.
stuff. A lot of magnesium wheels.
Not as much as
Okay,
I
never mind.
used to, and I don't
Oh,
sell
okay.
much. And I just like Ford ports and Scott hats and injectors. I don't have any of that stuff either.
Hmm. So the gasser's killer. So while we're on the 55, before we get into a couple other questions I have about your cars, so you also have some parts lines that you sell.
Correct. Um, we sell a lot of billet dashes, battery trays, core supports for the Tri 5, 55, 56, 57 Chevys, bolt-in whole entire core support systems, um,
Yeah. So that
clamps and
comes. You see these. You came to the Tri Five show and you've ended some of the events. You can buy the whole modular crop, the radiator support, and the Tri Five Chevy, and it's loaded. You can get it all kinds of different ways.
yep,
AC condensers,
air.
the radiator, everything. You just bolt it in.
And now we even offer comes with a
Transmission
transmission
cooler
cooler now and everything. So you can get the whole kit and caboodle. And if you go to hotrodsbydean.com and look online, it's all on my website and all that stuff. So it's all on there.
It's pretty much
Okay.
all complete inclusive unit that all you need to worry about are hoses and coolant. Everything else is there.
Yeah,
For
and it's good.
55,
It's a very well put together piece. Very well.
yes, thank you. So there's
So do
so
you
there's
still
that. So
have that neglected 32 sedan in like right as you walk in your building in your showroom?
Yeah.
I'd have to go look. I walk through there every day, but I never see that car. But it is there. The one with the little small block Chevy in it.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So
You mean the one with the
tell
Boss
everybody a little bit
429?
about this. It needs to be finished. It's a Jimmy Smith rendering on the wall in the building, right?
Yes, yes.
And it's
There's
like
a
Jimmy Smith draws amazing hot rods, almost cartoonish, and it's
yes,
one of the most realistic actual build in person to a Jimmy Smith rendering. So, but
yeah,
doesn't it got
yeah,
12 spokes on the front
yes.
and on the back?
Halibrands, like 15 wide Halibrands.
And is it on air in the front?
Air all the way around because I wanted to lay on the fenders. Yes,
Okay. And the motor is a
it's one of those little. They're. I don't know. You can find them now all over the place, but they used to not be so popular. The Boss 429s
right.
with the magnesium valve covers and the big blower and all that stuff. Yeah, it's just something. Yep.
What's the injection on the top? Is it a fuel injector?
Oh, it's going to be carbureted because I really want to drive on the street and I don't want to fart around with all that injection stuff. So it's going to
Oh,
be
okay.
dual carb, and it all fits under the hood, and it's all full fendered car when it's done. And it probably won't get done until I'm retired.
Too many other projects going on right now.
I remember one time you had a weak moment and you said it might be for sale. I was like, dude, don't sell that. I
You're
as
the
a
only
friend,
person I've ever,
friends sell their killer projects.
well, you're the only one I've ever talked about selling it to, and you said you might have had a guy at one time, but if it's one of those deals you'd have to give it away, and I'd never have it back. So it's like I'll just keep it. Unless I did
But
talk
if
to
you
a couple
wanted to
customers.
sell it, I would say that the catch has to be you only sell it if you get to finish it for the guy how you wanted to finish it. Then that would be okay to.
And there is a guy I've talked to several times about that happening, but I just haven't been. I haven't been the one to pull the trigger. And I think if I'm
Yeah,
busy with work, that's probably not going to happen.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I dig
and
that
there's a
car.
long story behind that car. I don't know if you know the story of how I acquired that car, but it's a lot of sentimental
I
value to that
don't.
car. So I was building that car for a client of mine, Bob Reesner, and he had passed away. And it's back to like the 55 story that you're maybe not going to be too happy about, but I acquired that car in the estate.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I know of a few things that have happened that way with other people.
yeah.
That means that for a hot rod guy to leave somebody a car, that's it's not like they left you money. If they leave you a hot rod or a dog, that tells you how much you meant to that person. I mean, seriously,
Exactly.
car people
Yeah.
don't give cars to people like that. But if they done the work to leave it in an estate paperwork, write it down. As the older I get, we have talked about that and had conversations of if I
Yep.
don't sell this one, what happens to it? I don't have kids. I have two nieces that
Right.
don't give a shit about hot rods or nothing.
Right.
So I've talked to a museum about leaving stuff to a museum that I need to get the paperwork done to make that. If I don't sell it beforehand, which
Right.
I'll probably need money someday because I do build hot rods for a living. So
Well, and there is that. So that's why it's hard for me to let go of that car. So that's a very long story, and I'm not going to get into it. But Bob was a great guy. I did a lot of work for the guy. He was a huge contracting company here in town, and I built him a lot of stuff early on, and he helped me out in a lot of ways that nobody else would. And we had a good rapport. And he was the guy that had Ferraris and jet planes and all that stuff. And I would walk into his warehouse, and he's like, "What do you think is the coolest thing I own?" And I'm like, well, it's got to be that 33 three window over there. It's got to be that 32 Ford. It's got to. And he's like, but you walk by, a $2 million Ferrari, and I'm like, you can have that. I
yeah, I
just,
appreciate
I
them. We got local
yeah,
guys with a big car collection and Bugattis and
yeah,
Mercedes SLRs, all that stuff. Wings. I appreciate them. I've never been that guy. To me, a supercar is a Corvette because I grew up around
right.
Tri Fives and my uncle had street rods and then the custom guys and all that stuff. But I go to these big collections and I gravitate towards customs first and then the street rods and then I go to the muscle cars and then I'll look at the supercar.
Well, the older I get, though, some of these Ferraris and some of these exotics are looking pretty darn cool. I don't know. It's just hard to get away from them, other than the dollar amount. But whatever.
Start
Maybe
selling blow
maybe that
pops again, dude.
I'm thinking of my side gig. I'm gonna have to make some extra coin to sell blow pops. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
send something in the mail for you.
I'm giving you all these ideas. You can do another shirt. It all started with the blow pop, and you could take that however you want to take it. But I'm sure that's copyrighted, so you got to be careful.
Exactly.
So, okay,
So that's
Carrie usually has questions that she's not here. What is your favorite? This is a two-part question. What is your favorite event that you go to, and what is a event that you would like to go to that you've never been to?
this is going to blow you away because you probably would find it hard to believe that I haven't been there. But by far, I think the best show for me that I have the most fun at because I don't think it's work and I have so many people there is the Grand National Roadster Show. I just love
Okay.
being
Yep.
there. I love having a booth there. I talk to everybody's been there from Dan Webb's. And I mean, it's like that's one time a year I get to see everybody. It's close enough for me to get to. I always have a booth now with the
Yep.
Slonica that Bob's doing, all that. It's just phenomenal. I've never built a car for the Amber. I'd love to have that day come true and actually be able to. I've never even competed. So it's like, of all the stuff I've done, that's something that's still on my, benchmark. I've talked to a couple people about
Yeah.
it.
But,
I think come
I figured you took a run at that before, but all the traditional hot rods you built. And
never
every year
have.
when me and my buddies start talking, my wife usually doing another event out. She does King of the Hammers then, and me and my buddies start talking about getting an Airbnb. And she goes, "You going to the Roadster show again?" Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I just want to go to the roadster show. I love it. I like going early. I go to the shop parties. You go to Marcel's, and it's. I live in California, but I like visiting for a week.
Exactly. So that's how we are. So that's for the fun one. I enjoy that show. For the one I've never been to that is on my bucket list is Columbus, and that's
No,
crazy to
okay.
say that I've been in the industry this long and I've never been to Columbus. So there's
Yeah.
that.
To me, Des Moines is my favorite one. It's the best Good Guys
Okay.
show. It's the best fairgrounds, and the atmosphere is. Other than the Street Rod of the Year and Street Machine of the Year in Columbus, it blows away Columbus tenfold in my
Right.
mind.
Yeah, but I just never done it. So
Have you
that's
been?
one of those.
Have you
I've
been to
done those
Gathering of
other.
the Rock yet?
I have not. No.
Okay, I figured that'd be a good one for you
I
because
don't.
that's kind of a
I don't get out
traditional
much.
based.
Yeah, but we're so
Yeah,
busy working. I don't
yeah.
have the leisure time that you do. I can just, lollygag the country and go to all these shows. But you announce and you're talking, so you got to kind of want to be there. I have to work.
I They pay me. They have to pay somebody to do that stuff. So I figured out a way. Of all the events I go to during the year, there's only two that I go to that's on me. That I pay for my hotel, I don't get paid, and I go. There's only two of
And how
all those
close to,
shows that I go to.
how close to home are they?
The one is 11 hours. It's the Let's Lead KKOA Let's Lead Spectacular because it's the custom show. And
Okay.
the other one is, I don't even know what the other one is because most of the ones I find a way to do something to get paid at. Because I get
Okay.
bored
Yeah.
really easy, so I get twitchy. You've seen me at Tri Fives. I'm working there, and I
Yeah.
work. I do some stuff for NSRA for the Street Rod Nationals. I do 9 Good Guys events. I'm doing a couple rock and roll shows. I do a couple drag races. So right
And
now,
you're still
the
building cars.
summertime, yeah, then I'm 14 hours a day in the shop when I come home. So
Yeah. So you're working when you're at the
yeah.
GNRS?
No, oh yeah, that's the second one that I do on mine. I don't do
Okay.
anything at the Roadster Show. The Roadster Show and the Custom Kemp's Lead Sled are ones that I do on my own. I knew there was another one. Yeah, I don't do anything. I keep asking them,
Oh,
hey,
you
let
don't.
me know if you need some announcing gigs or something like that, and they tell me no because you're not from the West Coast.
Well, I need to start bringing lollipops to some of these events so pay my way. Maybe that's where I missed the ball.
Yeah.
Would you buy a
Yeah,
sucker from me?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you say yeah. That's
I
good. You're a customer.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
will say
Yeah.
something that's kind of. I can't believe you didn't bring this up of all these awards that you have won, and I've won the Good Guys Trendsetter Award. And no offense to any of these people that have won the award and the award people themselves, but we take
You're gonna
this with
start
a
with this
grain of
story?
salt. I'm getting towards the end with this story, but I won the Good Guys Trendsetter maybe just a couple years before you, and you're on high. You're in the bathroom. You put your Trendsetter award down. We're taking a leak.
On the toilet.
Congratulations. Thanks. It what?
The award was sitting on the urinal.
Yep. And I go, you know what this means now? And you're like, what? And I go, absolutely nothing.
That's still the best one. That is still the best one because
Yeah.
I still laugh
Yeah,
about that.
I wouldn't say that to everybody, but I knew you had the personality that you would, you would get a kick out of it. You're like, yeah, thanks for keeping me grounded, dude. As we're sitting there taking a leak. Yeah.
We still laugh about that story today. That was a good one. That was a long time
But
ago.
it was, I still got my trendsetters right back here. So obviously it was a big honor when you look at the list of the guys that have won that. And of course, Chip Boost was the first one. It's some guy, and all but a couple people that has won that is still doing really cool stuff in the industry. I'm one that's probably obviously not, but there's some really rad people to be looped into that group of the trendsetter that Good Guys does. So yeah, it's a big honor.
I hold it it's hanging on my wall and always has. It's one of my highest honors. It's like so cool. But the thing I'm not sure you did it, but I had mine all autographed.
The post. Yeah,
The poster. I have the poster with everybody on it signed.
Oh, I have the poster when we did the anniversary thing. I still have a stack of posters, but the problem is with all of these people that we think all our friends, and the line was dying down that year at SEMA when we were signing those posters. Um, I have a couple posters that there's a penis drawn on my face.
Weird. That's kind of weird, isn't it? It goes along with the blow pop.
Yeah. So does that mean you drew it? I always blame Zane Cullen that drew the penis on there, and he won't deny or.
Yeah.
But allegedly, there might have been some other. I might have drew penises on somebody else's too. So.
I'm not saying Zane would be a bad choice, but I can't speak for that.
Yeah. 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 Nobody, if anybody knows Zane, they would not disagree that it could have been. It could have been. It could have been Jesse Greening. It could have been Eric Pratt. It could have been you. It could. There's at least 10 of those guys of that on the poster.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Joke.
And I was like,
It could have
adds
been you.
more fun to it.
Somebody has a hard time.
Well, I always say never fall asleep around me because it's like a college party. You might get a penis drawn on your face, but I'm not a very good artist, so I have to lay something up there to trace around.
All
Because
right.
you've never seen one before.
Right.
So okay. Without breaking, giving too many secrets, because there are people out there that listen. You've had cars and magazines before, like I have, that put the rendering in too soon and somebody tried beating you to the punch. So without sharing, we've talked about your 32. Is there a car that you would like to build? Whether you get the customer, we've talked about your 32s today, and you've done your 55 gasser. Without giving all the details away, you just said you would like to do an AMBR contender. Is there something like, oh man, I really want to build this, either for myself or this car that if I could find the right customer for? What's still on your bucket list?
Yeah, it'd be a 36 Roadster. That's one that's up there, and
Okay.
I'd like to do a 50, and for that genre. But then I would
Full custom.
more of a custom, and then I would like to do a 51 Merc for myself, a convertible though. 51 Merc convertible. Those are the two cars that
I have a
are in my
50 scoop in line for a customer. I know where there's a 36 barn find 36 Cabriolet right now, but it's not a Roadster.
Cabriolet.
Not the same.
Yeah,
Not the same.
yeah, but you could make it into one.
Well, I could build one from scratch, start tomorrow, but I mean, I got things to do.
Yeah, I love 30. Well, I would love 30, 35 or 36 preferably 3-window. And I was building one for a guy, but his daughter got sick. I was really excited about that. I love a 36 3-window.
Yeah.
And those are great cars too. But I think you're like me. You like the customs, you like the race cars, you like the history, you like the traditional cars, and we're very similar in all that. Except you go way out of the custom stuff, which.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the roach. If I ever do Roadster, I got to have a roof on me because I can't imagine cruising around a Roadster all day long in the Phoenix desert. I'd shrivel up.
Not bad.
I always say when I come out for the good shows, my lips are drying up. If I lived in Arizona for a week, I would be crippled up, shriveled up like a dead worm in the desert.
You need to grow. You need to grow some. I think it's just you're too soft.
I am a little soft. I'm a Midwesterner. I can't handle the desert. I guess I don't. Yeah,
Well,
but I like the look of a Roadster with a.
We're originally from New York, so we know what the humidity is and all that. We're still drying out.
Yeah. Okay. You had a little moisture still in you.
Well, we got another 10 years to go.
No. Okay, so is there anything else? We wrap this up. We've been talking about an hour and a half. We've got a lot in here. Is there anybody you'd like to thank? Thank some mentors. Thank.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I brought him up already. I mean, Brian Brennan has been just a true friend over all the years. Which all these guys, Dick Magoo, and now Dave Magoo, who's his son that I'm really close with in Havasu. Spent a lot of time together, spitballing stuff, talking about stuff. Mark Bozak for helping me get the shop going and all that. And then my crew of guys. I mean, my Daryl is my right hand man. I'm getting to go to Sweden again this year. Go over there and look at some car stuff and try to work some. I got some things over there I'm trying to bring back to America. And I can't, and all my guys, I can't do any of this without the 15 guys I have. And I mean, I'm thankful to be in this situation where I have these guys, and working with my brother every day is just the dream come true because he trusts me and I know where I'm going. I can leave and come back and it's okay. And it's just a great thing. And I'm really blessed in the ride I've had. Like I said, next year will be 25 years, and we're still what, 3 years out,
Yeah.
3-4 years out on work right now, that I can't do. So the industry's strong. It's shifted, but it's strong with the parts and the pieces, and that's evolving. And it's just, and the customers. I mean, without the customers, we're not here. Without guys coming in my door saying, "Hey, let me spend XYZ to build their dream," we're really, really fortunate to have all this.
Yeah, and I think
So,
guys like on this side of the fence are fortunate to have guys like you also in the same generation as me because we've had Alan Johnson on, same generation as us. He's brought a spring
yep,
company. He bought Walker
yep,
radiators, so he's
yep,
keeping that going. My good friend Zane
yep,
Cullen, he's bought the
yep,
Dan Fink hood hinges, and he just
yep.
recently bought. He now owns the Sid Shaver's Bop Top company,
Tops.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Good.
Right.
and then you
I
got
didn't know
try
about
five
that
parts
one,
and
but
Yeah.
stuff, and you got yeah, and you got this
Yeah.
mystery thing that if you bring something back from whatever you're doing over in, would you say Sweden or Switzerland, we'll have to do another podcast to
Sweden.
talk about that, whatever you're doing there.
Oh, the senior Volvo.
Yeah, you haven't even seen my Volvo. Did you see my Volvo at the Good Guys event?
Or was it the
I
Grand
don't think I
National?
did
I
I?
was at the Grand National Roadshow with the 351 Hemi, the little all
Green windows.
green windows, the little Volvo.
Oh yeah.
Hemi. That's
I'm
Yeah,
really
interesting.
good at
that's the most.
remembering cars, but at the Roadster show, there's a lot to take in. So it's
Oh
like, oh yeah,
yeah,
I did see that. Yeah, there's yeah.
I know. It's just the way it is. So that car came from some buddies over in Sweden that I've been dealing with and working with, and trying to put some other get. Part of me getting that car, so I'm trying to put other deals together and all that. So we'll see. You never know.
Very cool.
Planting seeds. Planting seeds.
So what is the car scene sign like in Sweden? I follow some custom pages in the Let's Let Custom stuff. There's a big, I mean, there's a group that I follow that there might just be 10 of them out in the whole country. I don't know, but it looks pretty awesome over there. Stuff. How is the car scene over there?
Well, the big one I go to is it's basically like a Good Guys event, and I go. It's in July, so that's why I always hit. That's their good time of year. They pack an airfield of all American hot rods, muscle cars, and all that, and we're talking probably 50,000 American cars sitting over there. No joke.
Hmm.
And then they at the end of the
Wow.
show they close off all the streets for like a 10-20 mile radius, and they cruise until they stop cruising for all days. It's phenomenal, and drives them. There's car collections, but most, even the guys that have the car collections, they're driving them. They're not like
Hmm.
warehousing them just to say, "Hey, look what I got." These guys they're bringing them into the country and they're driving them. And there's a lot of 59
Big
Cadillac,
cars.
a lot of big cars, 4 doors, because they all can drink. So you can drink and drive. You can't drive and drink, but my buddy can drive, and I can sit in the back, and I did with my bottle of Jack, making drinks, toasting the cop sitting there next to you, and he gives the old thumbs up, and off you go, and it's a party, and they're all about American cars. They the culture's changing. It's back to the same thing like it is here, but culture's changing. They're not about America like they used to be. But I mean, the first warehouse I went into, I walked into an old hay barn, and there was 16 59 Cadillac convertible Baritzas in it.
Oh my.
16. Yeah, that was the first building I
Wow.
walked into when I was there. And I went for a month straight the first time I went. And I went to car collection after car collection after car collection. That was nothing less than that. It's crazy.
Okay, so now I'm changing my answer to my question. I always want to go along with somebody like Dave Shutton to the Moon Eyes Japan show. So
Right?
now I'm adding to my list. I'm going to tag along with you one of those years when you go to that event.
You I wish it was this year. This may be their last year for their Good Guys event, because the guy that's putting it on, Shell, this may be his last year, and I'm not sure they're carrying over. But if they're having it
Oh
next
wow.
year, I am going again next year. You will get an invite. It'll cost you your plane fare and your food, room and board, everything else will be taken care of. I got a place for you to stay. It's well
Hmm.
worth the ride over there for a car guy like you to go around and to see what's over there. You will be awestruck. It is simply amazing how hard those guys go out of their way to have a little piece of America cars. Matter of fact, that's where
Hmm.
the 30. What year was it that Cadillac, Oldsmobile, and
Buick.
Buick debuted those three cars? You're the buff on that. What year was that? 30 what? Cadillac, Olds, and they all came out with the three cars at the World's Fair in New York, and it was a big deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm blank on that.
All right, well, I forget what year it was, but those three cars that sat in that show in the 30s, 40s, or 50s, it must be 50s, I
50s,
guess,
I think.
like 54, 53, 52. Those three cars are reunited in Sweden in a guy's collection, and they were bought here in America from three private people.
Oh wow.
Staggering stuff like that. All day long, every collection you go to is like that, where you're like, there's a story between these cars. Tell me. And then he tells you, he goes, you stupid Americans sold us all these cars, and we're never giving them back to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think we kind of take for granted our American
we
car
do.
culture. I mean, I don't mean us because we're hot rod guys and all that stuff, but
Right.
in the general public, we kind of take for granted. I mean, obviously, look at the cars. Like we're driving down the road the other day, and it's like, look at that Nissan Maxima. Now look at the new Cadillac CT5. It's got the same roof line on it. We've lost
Yeah.
that Americana stuff that everything used to be different, and then unfortunately, some of them, the old stuff that really have meaning to them to guys like us, are leaving the country. But at least
Yeah. And
somebody's
have been.
enjoying them.
Yeah.
Well, and they
Yeah.
do enjoy them. And that's the sad part when you go there because you see how much they enjoy them over how we enjoy it. They enjoy it a different way and they respect it. There's super birds over there or that they're sitting there drinking beer sitting on the wing. No joke. And it's like, I mean, first off, in here in America, you'd be lucky to get that guy to get that car out of the garage to even take it somewhere. And these guys are driving all
Yeah.
over the place
Yeah.
and sitting on them like it's a bar stool. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's just they have a different respect for it, but they love them, and
And
that's
it's a harder hobby to do over there.
cost them twice as
So
much.
so so you respect that more so because of how hard it is to do over there versus here. No, you can't do
Yeah.
a
We had
lot of
a guest on here a month ago, Greg Stokes out of New Zealand, big hot rodder down there, and he comes to the Roadster show every year. You maybe met him, but he was the guy that bought the Cop Shop Coupe, the Tom Proofer car, and shipped it
Yep.
to New Zealand, which he just
Yeah.
resold it. It's not announced yet.
Oh,
He won't tell me. Somebody bought it in the States. It's on its way over here, already landed over here, which the news in
okay.
the last couple of days is Tom Proofer, the hardcore hot rodder, passed away. But that car is coming back to the States. He had it in New Zealand because he always loved it. But he says, oh, it needs to be an American collection too. So
Okay.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
there's some of that. And
All
he,
right.
the stories of him getting that car and getting it licensed with their rules in New Zealand and, brake line
Okay.
clamps have to be a lot more and just weird little stuff like that. So every time you ship a car to another country, there's obviously a little bit of a hurdle you got to go over.
Mhm.
And even bringing cars from Sweden to here has been a hurdle because you got to translate titles, and it's just the paperwork trails a lot more. So it is a little more consuming, but
Yeah. Okay, so again, is there anything? Tell everybody where they can find you. Again, your website, where you can find your parts, and where to see all your social media pages.
so I'm on Hot Rods by Dean on Instagram, Hot Rods by Dean or Dean Livermore on Facebook, www.hotrodsbydean.com. Um, Google us. We're out there. Stop by, say hello, comment on posts and pieces, and call the shop, say hello, whatever. That's what we're here for. We just love cars, just like the rest of you guys. So it's an honor
You
to be
still
on your
got another
show and all that.
Instagram page. You still do anything? You did an Instagram page,
Well,
was kind of like photography, traveling, and driving the yellow 55 that you got.
yeah. So I have a Try Five Adventures page where it's all Try Five Chevys for my 55, which is Try Five Adventures on
Instagram.
Instagram, And then my personal page, Dean Livermore, is all my photography, which I just do when I travel and all that. When I don't want to deal with cars, I do pictures of birds and bees.
So I was reading to get a little background on you. When Good Guys did the fuel curve 5 minutes with, it says that you like to do gardening. That was a new thing for me that I didn't know that you like to garden.
Not that anything grows, but yeah, he likes.
Okay, well, I'm not selling marijuana or nothing like that. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just, it takes you away from what we do every day, but you're still playing with your hands. So you're out digging holes, you're moving trees, you're doing that. So you're still being that. And I mean, it's cool to watch flowers grow. And all that.
But is it gardening in desert just like moving a cactus and rolling a rock over here?
You know how many fruit trees I have in my house?
I don't. I've never been invited over to the house.
I think I'm at 15 fruit trees right now. Apricot, kumquat, peach, plum, grapefruit, oranges. I could go on. And I don't have a large property. I'm not on an acreage, so it's all confined to my area. And I just love all that. And it brings back the East Coast to me, where it's in Arizona, as you well know. It's a dry desert and it's kind of boring at times. Yeah. Although when it's blooming in Arizona, it's wonderful. Beautiful, but yeah. I still like grass. I still like trees. I still like flowers and all that, which is hard to find in Arizona, but you have to work at that here. It doesn't come easy.
Yeah.
That's where that gardening comes in.
You need to get away from
I grew up on a Christmas Day, so.
Well, then
yes.
Yes. You have sappy hands.
Okay. I did, yeah. I was totally like that scene in the Griswold's Christmas, the tree sap everywhere because we made cut up the stuff where he's trying to get the catalog. Yeah, that was me all the time. Yeah,
exactly.
Ruined clothes. Yeah,
and cars and paint. But we appreciate you inviting us on. We'd love to do it again. So anytime you need to fill a slot like this time, let us know. We appreciate it.
Yeah, this started, I've talked to you like at the Roadster Show. Hey, I've got a big list of people. I had a lot of really good response from a lot of really awesome people at the Roadster Show. We're picking through that list. And then I just started talking crap to you the other day of the picture online that you were driving that blue Roadster. And I was like, is that Herman Munster or Mr. Incredible in there? And then I didn't even know, I didn't know if it was you or your brother running the social media page. So then I was like, hey, we or whatever, let's speak through the podcast. So.
Yeah, so we appreciate it. It's all good. It's all good. Yep. And it's always nice seeing you. Well, we don't see enough of you.
I appreciate your guys' friendship. I'm always got to stop by and visit with you when I come to the Fall Scottsdale event. I've always enjoyed the time when I come to the shop, but I guess I'll try to stalk you and see your trees in your backyard the next time maybe I'm out there. So I want to thank the guys from Hot Rods by Dean in Phoenix, Arizona. Dean and his brother Daryl. Is there another brother Daryl? Remember that TV show? My brother Daryl, my other brother Daryl.
I hear the older I get, the less I hear that though. So you are showing your age.
Yeah, that's true. So I want to thank the guys from Hot Rods by Dean for being a guest on the Strange Motion Way podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Tim.
Hey, welders. Ready to upgrade your gear and save some serious dough in the process? The Miller Build with Blue Savings and Rebate Program has you covered. Find amazing deals and cashback rebates on a wide range of Miller products, from welders to plasma cutters and everything in between, all backed by our 3-year warranty. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of the Miller Build with Blue program now. Visit us online or stop by your nearest Miller distributor today to start saving.